HomeTech is supported by its listeners. To learn more, go to HomeTech.fm/support. From Sarasota, Florida, I'm Seth Johnson.
And from the mildly cold basement recording studio in Denver, Colorado, I'm Jason Griffin.
Excellent.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, the freezing basement. Looks like you're bundled up. I'm here in shorts.
Yeah, it used to be. I got a space heater recently, so that's helped, definitely. It was long overdue. Oil-filled, like a radiator style, if you've ever heard of those. If you're in the market for a space heater, highly recommend you go that route. It's pretty nice.
Excellent. Well, I'm not. I'm in the market for an air conditioning for this garage because it's so hot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tonight we've got a pretty cool project with Gavin Campbell. It's nice enough to come on and share a little bit with us about his system, but also like the evolution of his system, like from going from starting off with just one device and getting into HomeKit. And then now, I mean, he is full on just doing crazy things that only power users should do. I don't think I even have the confidence to do what he's doing. So really good interview, and hang on for that. But first, let's take a look at a few home tech headlines.
Yep, let's do it. So first up, we've got Google Home routines. These were first announced last spring. They will be available soon. This from a post on Google's blog by Nick Fox, the VP of Product. Quote, "We first announced routines last year, which will help you get multiple things done with a single command. In the coming weeks in the US, you'll be able to use 6 routines that help your morning, commutes to and from work, and evening at home. For example, say, 'Hey Google, I'm home,' and the assistant on your Google Home or phone can turn on the lights, share any home reminders, play your favorite music, and more with just 4 simple words." So there you go.
I like it. Simple, easy, couple macros, get the house set up. Good to go. Microsoft and Xiaomi have signed a memorandum of understanding. Oh no, not another memo. To work closely in the cloud computing, AI, and hardware. This includes discussions about possibly integrating Microsoft Cortana with the Mi speaker, a budget speaker with modern look. So far, Microsoft only has developed one Cortana smart speaker, the Harman Kardon Invoke, which has struggled to compete with other popular digital assistant speakers like Amazon's Echo and Google Home.
That's right. So this could be an interesting one, Seth. I know Xiaomi is a company that you say is one to watch, and we actually talk about that a little bit on our interview with Gavin as well. So this will be interesting to see if it bears any fruit for Microsoft. Speaking of, smart speakers that haven't seen a ton of adoption or seen the market yet at all, for that matter, Bixby fans. This is Samsung's smart speaker. It says Bixby fans can rejoice. DJ Ko, president of Samsung's mobile division, has confirmed at Mobile World Congress that the company's long-rumored Bixby smart speaker will be out sometime in the second half of the year, according to the Wall Street Journal. Samsung confirmed that it's working on the smart speaker last August. Rumors from December pegged the release sometime in the first half of 2018 for around $200. Seems like the rumored release date has since slipped to the second half of the year, so we'll see.
Great. Speaking of rumors, Facebook has smart speakers coming in, launching by July, and are codenamed Aloha and Fiona. Facebook's rival to Amazon Alexa will have a 15-inch LG touchscreens. DigiTimes reports, citing industry sources. DigiTimes has a spotty record on reporting these kind of product launches, so keep that in mind. Facebook also has a spotty record.
Yeah. It's interesting. Seth, I saw the link to this story in our queue, and it was, I didn't see any reports of this elsewhere, but CNBC.com picked it up, cited DigiTimes, but sort of hedged their bets a little bit and said DigiTimes has a spotty record. And like you said, so does Facebook. So only time will tell on this one. In our last quick headline we wanted to hit here, friend of the show, Richard Gunther, writes over on his blog, The Digital Media Zone, that Staples has notified registered users that the Staples Connect smart home controller would soon be shut down, and the web servers, or that they would soon shut down the web servers that run the product. Some device pairings may still work for some users, but the apps and web management portals are no longer available. So send that one to the Smart Home Hub graveyard. That's unfortunate.
Yep. Rest in peace. I mean, they haven't been supporting it for over 2 years. So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things that's been known for a while. At least it didn't, get turned off instantly, or I guess it's been lasting longer than the Revolve Hub. Remember that one? That one lasted maybe a year before Google shut them down.
They didn't set the bar particularly high, but yeah, at least they gave users a little bit of a runway there to get things transferred over and set up, but still a bummer. I guess they'll stick to office supplies.
Yep. So big news today, or this week, was Amazon acquiring Ring, the Santa Monica, California-based video camera, doorbell, and security system maker. GeekWire reported this earlier in the week, kind of blew us all out of the water, just all of a sudden happened. And the surprise acquisition marks the latest move by Amazon to buy smart home technology products related to the security industry. Financial terms were not disclosed, but Reuters puts the deal at more than $1 billion.
That is a fantastic payday for the team at Ring. And, first want to say congratulations to them. We've had Jamie on the show in the past, and that's great. So hats off to them. Interesting move by Amazon, definitely. They recently, Seth, we talked about, purchased that company Blink, which was, of course, another camera maker. And so, definitely a pattern emerging here of Samsung continually investing in and purchasing smart home companies. And, Mike Wolf, who's a great friend of the show, had a tweet that actually GeekWire cited in some of their reporting, where Mike said Amazon is getting a bunch of IP around home security, smart home services, etc. This is a huge smart home industry move. And Mike is definitely one of the top people that I like to pay attention to whenever these sort of stories emerge. I think he really does a great job of keeping his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the industry with these big players and big moves like this. And no surprise, of course, to hear him say that this is a big deal. But really interesting to speculate what Amazon's grand plans are here with all of these smart home acquisitions. And they've got enough money to go make some big bets, and this is clearly one of them.
Yeah, it's interesting that Amazon is kind of like an installer for these products too, right? So I'm sure from like a purely analytics point of view, they had a really good idea of what the most popular doorbell was, video doorbell was that people were buying,
Sure.
and it kind of made that buying decision pretty easy. But I think the biggest thing that Ring has going for them right now is not so much the doorbell or the floodlight cam or anything like that. I think it's the yet to be released security system and how much that is ready to and set to disrupt the entire security market, not only with the price, but with the monitoring price that comes, each month that how much you're paying. I think it's $30 or $100 a year or something like that, or $10 a month. You can add on professional monitoring service to this product. And that may sound, that may not sound like a big deal at first, but if you consider most professional monitoring services are somewhere around $40 to $50 per month. And multiply that over a year, and actually over 3 years, because most of them require you to get a contract of some type. And that's a huge deal to consider that these products are going to be released with the ability to consumers to go ahead and install them, get them set up, and also have professional monitoring done on the backside. That's going to be big. One of the big questions I had, regardless of all the integrate, regardless of all the business that this gives Amazon and how much Ring gets for how much money Ring gets, was the integrations with Ring. What's going to happen with that? They've been promising HomeKit would come to the Ring doorbells for some time, and we haven't seen it. But luckily, people were asking on Twitter, and there's a couple of tweets that we can link to. But HomeKit, Ring says HomeKit is definitely still in the works. As soon as testing is complete for the Ring Pro and Floodlight Cam, we'll partner with Apple to provide an update and release date. So that will be great. I've seen a number of other tweets from people, retweeting or retweeting or tweeting Ring directly, and Ring is standing by this. They're saying the integrations are still number one. One of their number one priorities, because they want to make an ecosystem out of this, it seems.
Yeah, I think you're right. To me, that's one of the most interesting aspects of the story, and really to see how that plays out. And of course, only time will tell. But Ring says that they're going to continue pursuing that integration, and we have to take them at their word. But you got to believe that this is going to have some bearing on those future integrations, and whether that means they're completely shut down or limited in some way, I'm not sure, but you just have to imagine that may come into play. But who knows? Amazon has been very open with their API generally with Echo, and so we'll see how that sort of philosophy carries over into this. I think it's there's a lot of speculation going on. Some of the other stories that I've read indicate that this could be a move to bolster Key, their initiative where people can come in and deliver packages. To me, that seems like a little bit of a, to spend $1 billion just to bolster this program that really has been mixed reviews, I think is a bit of a stretch. I think certainly they could overlap, right? And this move could help them potentially overcome some of the hurdles they've had there from a technology standpoint. But there's got to be way, way, way more to it than that.
Right.
And so surely they've got a grand plan. And again, congrats to the team at Ring. Great news for them. And we'll hope that some of the potential negative fallout for people who are counting on those integrations and things of that nature will be minimal.
Yeah, absolutely. To receive the top headlines from last week in Home Tech, subscribe to our newsletter at HomeTech.fm.
All right. Well, that's it for news. We're going to move here shortly into our interview with Gavin Campbell. Again, an installment of the Projects Project that we had a ton of fun talking with him and really look forward to that. Before we get into that, we want to send a quick thanks to all of you who participate in our Slack channel, The Hub. If you're interested in learning how you can do that or just simply support the show, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support. Once again, that's HomeTech.fm/support. And that's where you can become a patron of our show. And you can do that for as little as $1 a month and join our Slack channel, The Hub. Yeah, really great community. And we would love to have you. So definitely go check that out.
Yep. Jason, I've got a pretty good pick of the week this week.
What you got? What you got for me, Seth?
I think you will appreciate this. I certainly appreciate this much more than I did a year ago.
All right. It's loading here. Okay. Kid one started potty training. That is funny.
So what we have here is a gentleman who decided to work on potty training. And what he did is he took an Amazon IoT button and printed out a little like emoji poo sticker and stuck it on there. And then when the little one goes to the bathroom, they can press this button after going to bed, and that wouldn't let the parents know that they need to go potty. I like it.
That's brilliant. Get out, come get me out of bed, or you're going to have a mess to clean up.
Yeah, exactly. He could have easily just bought one of these things, but I don't know. This is a little more non-analog, and I like it. So yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, before we get into our interview here, Seth, I know we've got another installment of the mailbag here, and I'll go ahead and tee this one up. A pretty interesting one on a couple of levels. So I'll go ahead and read it. Keith Watson, if you're listening, thank you so much for sending this. He said, just catching up with the last few episodes. In episode 198, Seth mentioned the horrible, annoying expletive inserted here noise during the Super Bowl. If you go back and listen to that episode, Seth, that was where you had some issues listening to the Super Bowl over the air. Keith goes on to say, it was the network that inserted the sound into the track. Why? I have no idea. I have Fios and I am blind, so I just had to put up with that for the entire game while my buds were able to just mute the audio. Sorry, Seth, can't blame OTA for that one. So that's the first part of the email I wanted to talk about. I'm very surprised, Seth. I don't know what your reaction is to that. If it was coming through on all Fios subscribers, I have to imagine we would have heard about it maybe a little bit more, possibly even in the headlines, but definitely interesting to hear. I'm not quite sure what would have caused that. It seems like it was definitely not deliberate. It was some sort of technical issue one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on. I mean, definitely, there's no way it could have been deliberate, but I didn't hear very much. I heard a bunch of other stuff, like the Hulu app, which basically stopped the sports event because it was like scheduled between this hour and this hour. It like stopped it flat on that hour and kicked you back out to the horrible Hulu menu. And then you had to like navigate back to try and figure out how to get back to the Super Bowl in those last couple seconds when your team may be winning the Super Bowl, which actually happened this year. So yeah, I heard about that one, but I didn't hear any widespread rumors of this thing. And I'm just kind of shocked. Like I was wondering, I thought surely this was something to do with my antenna setup or how I'm bringing the antenna into the house, or heck, it could have been Sonos. It could have been any number of things. But I was just shocked to hear this. And since he's blind, he couldn't turn the thing off and enjoy the game. He had to listen to this the whole time. I am so sorry, man. That's horrible.
Yeah, brutal.
Yeah, sorry, Keith.
Brutal. So anyways, I don't know. If anyone else is listening and had any experience with that, would love to hear from you. HomeTech.fm/feedback. I'm not really sure. It's a very interesting one. But, Keith goes on to say that he is blind and says his wife sort of claims he's the only blind guy in the world who has an infatuation with lighting. Started years ago with X10. He says he now has Philips Hue, Belkin Wemo, Lifix, Z-Wave sensors, all bridged and controlled by Home Assistant. Loves the DIY stuff. So great to hear from you, Keith. We really appreciate you reaching out, and don't be a stranger. We'd love to hear how things develop as you continue working on those systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got a plug here, like home automation, we kind of give it a hard time, but there are people like Keith here who have a hard time controlling their environment, and home automation literally gives them the opportunity to interact and control things that are around them. So I'm glad that this is one of those success stories in my book. Like even though we have to put up with bad audio for a sports broadcast, which mind you didn't happen on the very next week when I've been watching the last couple of weeks. I've been watching the Olympics, same channel, perfectly fine. So whatever it was with that particular broadcast. But at the same time, like I'm glad that home automation works so well for people who are disabled and disadvantaged more than I am. I just take for granted walking to my house and enjoying all 5 of my senses.
Right.
So Keith, thank you very much for reaching out. We appreciate it.
Yep. Absolutely. If you would like to have a question read on the podcast, we would absolutely love to hear from you. Our email address is feedback@hometech.fm. Once again, that's feedback@hometech.fm. And if you're interested in tuning in live, we do typically record the show on Wednesdays around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That time can fluctuate a little bit, but head on over to hometech.fm/live. Once again, hometech.fm/live if you want to join us for a live recording.
Sounds good, Jason. Let's go ahead and jump into our interview with Gavin Campbell.
Hey, Gavin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We are doing great. We're excited to have you all the way from Toronto, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us and really excited, Gavin, to jump into this conversation. We've been exchanging a couple of messages, getting ready for this, and it's, I think, going to be a really exciting installment of our project. You've got a lot of really, really cool stuff going on, and man, we can tell that you've been busy since we first got in touch. So thanks again for coming on and joining us. And why don't, before we get started and talking about your technology and some of the things that you're doing there, just give our listeners a little bit of an introduction, talk about where your passion for the smart home comes from, and sort of what you have got going on now.
Sure. My name's Gavin Campbell. I live in Toronto. I've been basically into the whole automation thing my whole career, because part of my job is automating software installs or automating anything we can around the office. So it just transitioned into the home automation. So when I bought this new house, the first thing I want to do is automate as much as I could out of it, based on my budgets and my requirements. So that's a lot of what we'll talk about tonight is, my experiences. I'm not a professional at this, so I'm sure people will disagree with things I say, or I'm going to say something wrong. Hopefully they don't kill me on Twitter for this, but I'll do my best to answer any questions or, whatever you guys want to know.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's one of the fun things about the smart home is there's really no right or wrong, right? And you can come at these projects from a bunch of different angles and have some fun doing it, and certainly run into some headaches as well. And we'll talk about some of those. And let's start out at the beginning, Gavin. You had reached out to us, and we had touched base actually, last year originally, and at the time, you were going down the HomeBridge road, and really, looking to go all in on HomeKit. And some of those things have changed a little bit, but talk about some of those early experiences with using HomeBridge and HomeKit, and maybe what caused you eventually to sort of move away from that.
Sure. So first thing I did was I got an Ecobee Thermostat. That was my first device into the whole home automation thing. And the Ecobee Thermostat went connected to HomeKit. It was a HomeKit device. So we all have iPhones in this house. So we wanted to use Siri to control everything. And HomeKit seemed like the most logical way to do this, right? So my second device was my Hunter Douglas blinds in my kitchen, but they weren't HomeKit compatible, right? I found out that the connector for it had an open API that I could tap into. It wasn't documented anywhere, so I was able to find the commands, and I worked with a few people online, and we were able to write a HomeBridge plugin to connect our blinds into HomeKit. And from there, I kind of got the bug to automate as much as I could through HomeKit using HomeBridge. Now, if you're not familiar with HomeBridge, HomeBridge allows you to bridge non-HomeKit devices into HomeKit, right? But you need to have the add-ons, you need to have the plugins, and there's a big community out there developing it, but there's not always something for your device, right? So I started writing a few various add-ons that worked with HomeBridge, and I got the bug from that. I just kept going down the rabbit hole, automating as much as I can to the point where you could just say I outgrew it in a way. HomeKit automation is very simple, right? It doesn't allow you to do much advanced stuff. I did a lot of advanced stuff, more than the average user, because there's another app in the store called Home. And that app allows you to get if then else statements and do more with your home automations in the HomeKit. So I eventually had like 30 different rules set up, and just keeping track of them, it was tough. So that's pretty much sums up my HomeBridge experience in HomeKit.
So that was one of my questions. I think you answered is when you said advanced, more advanced than what HomeKit can do. Simply, you mean saying if this condition is met, do this, right?
Yes.
So like kind of like an if this then that type engine built into HomeKit, which I don't think it has. It might have a little bit, but it doesn't have much of one. I think they have like times.
Yeah, and it also allows you to do more restrictions around things, events happening, only execute this if this situation. It was also kind of very clunky. It would crash at times, or there were times where it just corrupted my whole HomeKit setup and I'd have to restart from scratch and build it. That happens a lot. Even with HomeBridge, there were times when it would crash, you'd restart it, and then all the devices that you set up would have to be reorganized, renamed, everything, and it just mess up. Though it wasn't an easy journey. As nice as it sounds, it wasn't easy.
I can tell you, no professional system I've ever installed has ever done that. I mean, at all.
Right. Yeah, totally.
I can hear Jason laughing. Right? Is that Jason? Because I've hit the update button once on a Control 4 system and wiped out everything. I mean, there's some of these older systems, like you have to cross your fingers and pray that the upload completes and goes in and does all the firmware updates and everything. Because sometimes it doesn't, and you end up with a blank project, and you could start over, like you said.
Yeah.
So you moved away from the HomeKit ecosystem with the devices you had, like the Ecobee, the Hunter Douglas. Where did you end up going, and why? Why did you choose that path?
So while I was in the HomeKit ecosystem and using HomeBridge, one of the things I got was the Smartthings Hub. And my main use for the Smartthings Hub, it was on sale. It was very cheap at that time, like $50, I think, or less. I got it on sale, and I was planning to just utilize it with HomeBridge to be able to integrate Zigbee and Z-Wave devices into HomeKit as well, right? So after all the frustrations, I realized, wait a minute, SmartThings can actually do so much more, right? So I started digging more into SmartThings, and I said, this can actually replace all the HomeKit stuff and still integrate what I need into HomeKit. So I looked at what I had first, and then I decided, yes, I'll just move everything over to SmartThings and use that as my primary hub for everything, right? The move was actually not that bad. I found there were most drivers for mostly everything I needed. And I only had about 3 dimmers that were HomeKit only devices. So I ended up just pulling those out and replacing them with Z-Wave devices, and that was easy. But I did have to rewrite some of my software, smart apps to make it work.
Right. It sounds like it was pretty painless to do. So basically, now it sounds like you're fully into the SmartThings ecosystem. So with your current setup, what do you have? Lights, shades, cameras, what else?
Yeah, so I have the shades. I have a large number of Wemo devices. So I have the Wemo switches scattered throughout the house. I have a bunch of the Show Me devices. I believe that's how you say it, which include motion detectors, the door sensors, spread out through the house. I have probably about 25 of those spread out through my place, and the temperature sensors, so I can get a feel for various rooms in my house, which ones are warmer, colder, etc. And my house, surprised me. It's pretty balanced, pretty well. So it's good to know that. I do have the Ring floodlight camera. I've integrated that into Smartthings, but not with anything that's out there. That's something I wrote myself, and I was able to integrate the notifications into Smartthings and able to control the light. But the video I still use for its own app. I still use for the video. Also, the MyQ garage door controller. I was able to integrate that into Smartthings. None of these systems out of the box will work properly with Smartthings. Nothing does. You always have to look at some way to hack it, or you have to write. I have a server in my basement running a Ubuntu server. And on it, I have about 4 different Node.js servers running to handle all these different ecosystems, to handle the communication back to Smartthings. That's what was the painful part. But you know what? It runs actually pretty well.
That's amazing. I was going to ask just generally how your experience with Smartthings has been. It's a system Seth and I have talked about a bunch of times on the show, and neither one of us have direct experience with it. It seems to be a pretty robust ecosystem, but I guess you put it up against a power user like yourself, and you end up with a basement full of servers and custom drivers and things of that nature. But that's awesome. That's why one of the reasons we were really looking forward to chatting with you is because it sounds like you've really rolled up your sleeves and have figured out ways to make this stuff work. And generally speaking, how has the reliability been for you? Obviously, you alluded to the fact that the initial setup has taken a lot of effort on a lot of these things, but as far as the overall reliability with Smartthings, what's your experience been like?
When it works, it's great. Last year, when I started the whole Smartthings journey, it was working great. They had no issues. Things worked. Like I wouldn't wake up in the morning and things wouldn't be broken, right? Since January 1st, something has changed. And I don't know if it's related to the announcement with their whole merging of all their technologies into Smartthings and back-end changes, but it's almost once or twice a week the Smartthings Hub is going down, and you can actually look at their status page and see how many times it's gone down. And whenever it goes down, the wife acceptance factor goes down as well, because she'll just look at you like, hey, this ain't working. And you're like, I know, just give it an hour. Right. And, she's starting to hate some of the things, especially when they don't work. When they do work, I can hear her talking to Alexa. I can hear her, telling Alexa to turn on the TV and change the channels and stuff like that. She likes it, but it's when it goes down pretty often too. And sometimes even when it comes back up, your devices don't come back online. So even today, I had to go down, pull out the batteries for 30 minutes, reset everything, and let the Zigbee network rebuild, Z-Wave devices rediscover. Everything I had to wait on all that to happen again, and that was from an outage they had yesterday.
Wow!
Right, so. I don't know how long I'll stay with Smartthings, if it's just some growing pains they're going through, but I do have a plan if I'm going to move away from them.
Got to have a contingency plan, it sounds like. Wow. So
yes.
So, it's great when it works, right? And I think you could say that about a lot of smart home technology. And we were talking before the show about that experience of really getting in there with DIY smart home technology and really learning lessons the hard way about the reliability. And it's not always what it appears to be from the marketing materials, right? So that's interesting. You mentioned, I think you pronounced it Show Me. Seth and I have a lot of ongoing jokes on the show because I'm terrible at pronouncing this too. I think it's Chow Me, Seth. Did I get it right that time?
Yep, that sounds right.
Okay, he's waving. No, okay, Chow Me. I think I finally got it. So I noticed you were using a bunch of those sensors, and I know Seth has really been talking about Xiaomi as a company that is really one to watch. They're starting to show up more and more in smart home conversations, and very inexpensive products. And how has your experience been with them specifically from a reliability standpoint and ease of setup? What's your experience been like?
So I have their temperature sensors, their motion sensors, and I have their door sensors, door window sensors. And yes, the price, you can't beat the price. Under $10 a device, I can't beat that, especially in Canada where we get overcharged for everything, right? I jumped right in, and when I first saw it, I made one quick order. A month later, it came, and there was a Smartthings driver for the device at that time. However, it was very primitive early in the stages, and something like the battery levels weren't being reported properly. So I was looking at that driver, and I worked with the guys, in the forums, lightly to try and get that working. And, there's a group of guys now in the forums that pretty much have taken over those device handlers for those devices, and they're doing a great job with them. And now they're doing everything. They're working beautifully. They're Zigbee devices, but I don't think they use the proper Zigbee. I think they hacked the Zigbee a little, so things don't work like normal Zigbee devices, and that's why the device handlers are needed. But the new device handlers are working great.
Very interesting. SmartThings sounds really like, it looks like a mass marketed product, but it sounds like if you really want to get deep into it, you can.
Yeah.
and really put some labor, like some love on this thing. You can. It sounds like you've got quite a bit invested in it at this point to be doing your own integrations with it. It makes it even more powerful, and I guess that speaks to the devices that you're using too. That you're able to move from one platform to the other without changing only 3 dimmers. It's pretty neat. Are you using the Wise Cam? We've been talking about that on the show. The $20 Wise Cam, which is a Xiaomi camera as well. How are you using that, and how is it working out if you are?
So the Wise Cams are based off the Xiaomi cameras, right? But it's a company in the States that they're writing different firmware for it and different software, and they're offering free cloud. I got the version 1 of the Wise Cam, and it works nicely. I have to admit, it works nicely. The video quality is great. Notifications work. They're constantly upgrading software. Support is great. I can't really say anything bad about them. They're smaller than I expected, which is great. And I have 2 of them in my house. The only thing about them is I can't integrate them with anything. They're very locked down, which is expected because they got to make money somehow, right? So they're very locked down. However, the version 2 of the Wise Cams, they just announced, it's on pre-order, I think still. They're going to do IFTT integration with it. I don't know what that means yet, but that's a good sign, right? I've also got confirmation from them that they don't know when they'll bring it to the version 1, if they even do. So I may have to fork out a couple dollars for version 2.
Oh no.
Just for that. Well, just for that if support, right?
Yeah.
Like what I want to do with them is, if they have a trigger where I can turn them on and off based on my home presence. So when I'm home, turn them off. As soon as I leave, turn them back on. That's the basic that I want to do them. I don't like things recording all the time when we're in the house, right?
Right.
So I'm hoping they do it.
That makes sense. What are you using for house audio? We've talked a lot about automation, but I'm sure you have more than hopefully more than just the Echo in the house. What are you using for house audio?
So my house audio setup is another little custom thing. I'm using an app called Tune Relay, which is a server app that accepts like a AirPlay signal to it, and then will relay that signal out to various AirPlay devices in your house, right? So they also developed Tune Aero, which is the receiver that you can install on your home theater PCs or whatever in your house to receive the signal, right? So I also found that had an open API, and I wrote a driver or a smart app for that with some device handlers to integrate it into SmartThings. So now what we do is from my phone, what we do is we AirPlay our audio to the house, what it's labeled as. And then from there, we can tell it to turn on and off speakers in what room. So I can say, turn on the family room speaker, and it will turn on and start playing in there, and I can control it like that.
Very cool. I haven't heard of this one. I've been using one that's a Node.js based one. I can't remember the name of it, but
yes.
I mean, it's kind of clunky and works kind of half the time. The only problem I have with AirPlay right now is that there's that 2-second, hard built-in delay. of the audio starting at each end. And it's I mean, supposedly that's going to go away with the new AirPlay 2, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, with Tune Relay, if you use it with Tune Arrow, all your rooms are in sync. It does its math, it keeps everything in sync. So when I send it to the whole house, as I'm walking through the house, everything's in sync. There's no echoes or anything, which is what we really like.
Very cool. And what are you using for like AV control of the home theater?
I got the Logitech Harmony Hub. So I use that on both my TVs actually, with some touch remotes, the Logitech Harmony touch remotes. So they're pretty nice. What I like about them is they integrate into Alexa really well, into the Amazon Echo. So I can tell her to turn on the TV, and then even from when it's turning on the TV, I can tell her to change the channel to whatever I want, or change it to, I can refer to a channel by name based on how I programmed it, right? So that's one of those devices in my setup that has a high wife acceptance factor.
There you go. There you go. Cool. A couple other things, you got a ton of stuff going on there, obviously. One of the things that I saw in the notes that you sent over that I actually wanted to ask about, I have to admit I hadn't heard about before. You said you're using an Amazon Fire HD tablet running Action Tiles.
Yep.
So talk about that.
So Action Tiles is, you can actually go to actiontiles.com, and they're I guess a dashboard for SmartThings. So you can basically build your own dashboard based on all your SmartThings devices and control them from that. So what I did is, a lot of people are actually doing it in their forums, is I took the Amazon Fire HD tablet, loaded Action Tiles on that, and there's a fully kiosk application that will run a website and then also allow you to have like a screensaver. So my screensaver is a picture slideshow. So when, it's just sitting there, it's showing pictures of, my family, the dog, whatever. And then as you walk up, you touch it, it brings up the panel. And then from there, I can open the garage doors, see where there's motion currently, stuff like that. Even if my Ring floodlight cam detects motion, it sends a notification to that and automatically switches over to video for 1 minute, right? So all these things are on their forums on how to do it. And it actually works pretty well.
Yeah, I ran across Action Tiles a long time ago, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. And then I get down to it. I'm like, oh, it's only for SmartThings.
Exactly.
I was like, I want it for everything else. But yeah, I mean, it is a really, really neat little, it's really well done. I think they have those little widgets that you can put in there. You can color code them. Like you said, you can put pictures and put cameras on there. It's one of the more interesting dashboards I've seen. And I wish it worked for everything else, because it's a really neat interface.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So, I think generally one of the themes, obviously, that we're touching on here, Gavin, is you've done a lot to sort of supercharge your SmartThings setup, and like Seth was saying, it's very much marketed and appears on the surface as a consumer product, and it is by all accounts. But if you really want to get in and get under the hood, it sounds like there's a lot you can do. We mentioned Action Tiles as a specific tool you're using. I think you mentioned another one in our notes that I don't know if you've mentioned on air, and I want to be sure we do. WebCore, I think.
Yes.
And so just talk a little bit about if there's anybody listening who has SmartThings and wants to get into doing a little bit more of this custom work, point them in the right direction there.
Yeah, so WebCore, how can I explain? It's like an add-on to SmartThings in a way. So SmartThings out of the box does the basic stuff, almost similar to HomeKit, but it also has like smart apps and custom device handlers, and you can create routines and stuff like that. But when you really want to get dirty and start writing code, you can add on WebCore, and that's just installing a smart app onto SmartThings, and then WebCore has its own web interface that you go to, and you can start writing your own routines. So you can say things like, if motion's detected in the laundry room, turn on the light for 2 minutes, wait, check again. If there's no more motion, turn back off the light. And that's just a very basic example. I've actually built my whole home security system around it.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds awesome. So, keep us posted on that. I'd love to hear about this stuff and how you can really take what is actually a pretty basic system, an inexpensive system, and really do so many cool things with it. So I know we want to get into talking about some of the unique automations and some of the challenges that you've faced, but I selfishly have one more specific technology question I want to ask you about, because we talked about the wife acceptance factor, and I got to tell you guys that I am hearing daily complaints about the Wi-Fi in my house right now, and I have a pretty lowly setup, a couple of airport extremes that have served me very well for a number of years, but they appear to be on their last leg, and so I'm looking very hard at Eero, and very, very close to pulling the trigger. And I know you mentioned that you are using Eero in your home, so I'd love to hear what your experiences have been like, especially because you've got so much going on the network there. How's it held up for you?
So I did have an Asus 68U, I think it was, before, and it was centrally in my house, and it was doing an okay job, but I needed to upgrade, like you said, and I put a watch on Kijiji for Eero, and one popped up of somebody trying to just get rid of it. They were renovating an office, they had it, they just wanted to get rid of it. I got it at a crazy deal. Like it was like half the price, and I jumped all over that, and I brought it home. Literally, it took probably an hour to set up, and that's only because it had an update. And that update took longer. So as soon as I plugged it in, it's like, you have an update. And I was like, great, now I got to wait on that, right? But if it didn't have an update, 10 minutes, it would have been going. You plugged it in. I pulled out my own old network. I renamed it the same thing. I set the same password. All the devices picked it up right away. I have coverage throughout my whole house, and I don't even think about Wi-Fi anymore. Out in my garage, in my driveway, back in the backyard, it picks it up all there. Wi-Fi is the last of my worries anymore. I never get a complaint about Wi-Fi. It's really worth it.
A ringing endorsement there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard really good things about the Eero. I've got the Amplify HD here at the house, and it's okay. The biggest problem I have is, I think I've mentioned this many times, is the power supplies that come with the little paddle antenna things. And if they go bad, then the little thing has gone bad. And I've had 2 of those power supplies go bad. So your mileage may vary. My electricity is probably not all that great, but the Eero definitely, I think if I had to replace this one, I would probably go with the Eero as well. So let's talk about, we talked about the equipment. Let's talk about some of the really cool like automation things that you've done. It sounds like you've done quite a bit, but out of everything that you have custom programmed or custom if-then statements that you've set up, what are the top maybe 1 or 2 things that you think make your system special?
Well, one of the hardest things to get right was the presence detection, because what I have is when we leave the house, when there's nobody home, it automatically will alarm my alarm. And then you got to take into account, the first person comes home or the second person comes home, etc., stuff like that. It took a while to get that running because no one system was perfect. Even with HomeKit, it would get stuck. It would not detect people have left. It would not detect people have arrived. And the worst is when you arrive and the alarm starts going off because it didn't turn it off on you and stuff like that, right? So eventually I had to combine 2 technologies. So I use Wi-Fi presence on top of GeoPresence. And the Smartthings GeoPresence, they've actually made big improvements to that. So that honestly has been working 99.9% of the time. The Wi-Fi presence is just the added extra bit, but you can't rely on Wi-Fi presence because your phones actually drop off the network when they're in sleep mode. So if you relied on Wi-Fi presence, as soon as your phone goes to sleep, it drops network connection, then everything gets armed again. It says nobody's home, right? And that's, again, these were all the growing pains and stuff I had to discover that I never thought about, right?
What are you using for Wi-Fi presence?
It's another custom thing because I built it right into Smartthings.
So it's not part of Eero.
No.
Okay.
I basically, it's one of those Node.js servers running on my Ubuntu server in the basement, right? It's just monitoring the network for our MAC addresses, and it knows who came home and who's left.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I was wondering, I know that there's some routers that tout that as a feature, and I didn't think Eero was one of them. So I was just curious if you were using something other that was built into maybe Eero or something like that I wasn't aware of.
No, there's some routers you can actually run the script on, like the Asus routers. You can actually run a script on to do this. It's a little bit more complicated. I just rather run it on my Ubuntu server, especially since I got rid of my Asus router anyway now, right? So
okay, so presence detection, it's a big one. That really helps out with triggering. Basically, it's really easy to say if when the sunset does do something, but it's better to say if the sun sets and I'm not home, maybe put the house into some kind of random away mode where the lights kind of turn on like we're there, like a occupancy type situation. What's another really cool thing you've done?
So I basically built my security system around it. So using all the show me sensors, and SmartThings, I've written code so that, when nobody's home, it alarms the alarm system. It sets the house to away mode. And then I added extra switches in there. So they're basically toggles in SmartThings itself. So I can set lighting away mode, for example. And what that does is when the house is in away mode in the evenings, it will turn on and off random lights at specific times to make it look like somebody's home, right? So I can actually turn that on or off, or I can set it to silent alarm mode. So if someone triggers it, I'll just get notifications. So I'll get an email, a text, and a phone call, an automated phone call. You can do that through IFT. If the alarm's going off, from there, I can jump on one of my cameras and see what's going on around the house and see, maybe call a neighbor or whatever I have to do.
Got it. Very cool. Well, a ton of great stuff here. We're running up against our time a little bit. So, Gavin, I want to shift gears and talk about what some of your future plans hold. I know you've itemized a bunch of them out here in our notes and getting prepped. And what are some of the highlights? There's one in particular I actually wanted to ask about, Dogomation. You refer to it. So talk about that one.
I was trying to figure out a way that I can put a tag or something on my dog so that if he's home and the house goes into away mode, it's still like home away, so he doesn't set off my motion detectors. Or even if I put in a dog door where it would know it's him at the dog door and let him go in and out as needed. That's one of the future things I'm looking into. I don't know how far I'll get with it, but it's one of the more interesting ones.
Yep, that'll be a fun project, and definitely look forward to hearing from you on that to see what you find. I'm sure there are other people listening who have wrestled with that, and we'll put out a call to action if they have to reach out either to us or Gavin. We'll have you share your contact information here before we wind things down. But what are some of the other things? I know you've got a couple of other things on your radar. What are you sort of most excited about to dive into at your home here in the future?
One of the things I've been talking to a guy on the SmartThings forum was about automating some pool stuff. So we have a pool in the backyard, and one of the things I want to do is put sensors in for the pool temperature, even pool levels, stuff like that. And he's done it using Arduino. That's going to be a big leap for me because I haven't messed with that technology yet. It will be fun. I need to order the parts, but once I jump into that, that's what I'm looking forward to do this summer.
Yep, that's very low level machine. You're writing right on the machine that does the sensing and everything at that point. So yeah. Very cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. Not anything else, or
I'm getting an irrigation system put in, so I'm going to be automating that, of course. Right, I've already been looking at various things and talking on the forums about that. My shutters. I have a bunch of shutters in my house. I'm surprised there's no technology. Nobody's out there coming out with shutter opening and closing. I've seen some custom things, but nothing like out of the box really that I can think of. So I'm really trying to see what I can do with my shutters. Ring doorbell. I'm gonna waiting for it to drop in price, and then I'll grab one. And then, like I mentioned before, I may look into moving off SmartThings only because it relies too much on the cloud, and they've been having too many problems. One of the things I'm looking at is another technology called Home Assistant, and the difference is it does a lot of local processing, less reliance on the cloud, and hopefully that will solve the situation. Giving SmartThings a little bit longer, though. I'm just giving them a little time to, clean up.
Yeah, I think we looked at Home Assistant a while back, and it's definitely one of those more advanced systems that to set up and use. Like, it's not a basic, like anybody, Joe Schmo off the street can't go out, get a bunch of devices and set up a Home Assistant. Like, you kind of have to know what you're doing along the levels of what you're doing at this point. Like, you're literally programming in Python or YAML or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a lot more advanced than I think most people can get into. But it sounds like you're probably there and you're probably ready to step up. I know for the sprinklers thing, I just kind of want to put this out there. It's not on their API, but Ratio just this week has implemented a a throttling for their API. So you can only do 1,700 requests, and that can go down pretty quickly if you do a bunch of polling to the system. So ask me how I know and how many how fast I've got to spin up some stuff to come up with a solution to fix it, because we've got a bunch of Ratio drivers out there for Control 4 that we've got to fix now.
That was the top of my list, actually. I looked at a video yesterday.
Yeah, it's a good system, and they have webhooks for basically getting that real-time integration where something happens, it instantly sends a webhook back. But then at that point, you may not have this problem, but a lot of like the professional installers, we don't want to open up ports in a firewall to let that incoming traffic come in. We've got to figure out some other solution for it. So it definitely has a good API though, and I would highly recommend the product because it's pretty good. It's a pretty good product, pretty solid app. So definitely take a look at it. Well, it looks like we're going to run up on our time here. Gavin, I want to thank you so much for, first of all, submitting way back and all the information on your project. I know we've been talking about this for a while and trying to get you back, trying to get our show lined up where we can get back into doing these. And I want to thank you very much for being fully cooperative and getting back to us really quickly and letting us know that you can come on the show and talk about all of the changes that you've done in the past year. If somebody wants to reach out and maybe pick your brain a little bit and ask you about some of the things you're doing, what's a good place to find you?
The best place to contact me is actually on Twitter. So I'll be at GVN Campbell. And then I also have a lot of the code for some of the stuff I've been working on actually is up on GitHub. So if you reach out to me on Twitter and you're interested in some of this code, I can share it on GitHub. I'm always open to people sharing code and helping, troubleshoot some of the things.
That's great. I can speak for the listeners when I say we appreciate the offer, and you've definitely taken Smartthings and pushed it to the max. And so I think that that's an exciting opportunity for anybody out there who's thinking about Smartthings or already has it and is looking to sort of take it to the next level. And Gavin, just generally want to thank you. Really, really cool stuff you've got going on there. I had a great time hearing about it. Hope our listeners did as well. And don't be a stranger. We'll look forward to hearing about some of your other projects moving forward, and maybe we'll get you back on sometime next year for an update.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. Thanks, Gavin. Take care.